Okay, this tutorial is, well, again, pretty basic. I'm just going to show you how I personally prefer to animate the cameras. Now, usually camera animations, when you start out, they look pretty jerky, not very, like a nice flow to the camera, not a very natural movement. And in this tutorial, I want to explain how to accomplish that. So first, I got no cameras of my own. I got these 4 editor cameras, 3 orthographic and 1 perspective. Now, what I'm going to do is, obviously, when you introduce a camera, go to your perspective window, because you usually want a perspective camera, and you can just put in a camera by yourself. Now, rename it ASAP. So I'm just going to call it Cam. And right here you see the attributes of the camera. You see that it's at the same angle as the editor camera. By the way, I'm not looking through the editor camera because if I do this, you see this green thing going, and that's because you need to hit this little marker here to actually look through the camera. This is not an ideal spot to start a camera animation because it doesn't really matter where you start off. It would be nice if you had a sort of like a 0 point. So that's what I'm going to make. I'm going to reset the camera. So I'm going to set it to 0, hang on, 0, and 0, just a whole bunch of zeros. Alright, so now I'm stuck in the cube with my camera. And what I usually do is nest this camera in a null object. Now, I can introduce a null object and just put it in there, nest it in there, or I can group it. It doesn't really matter. If I group it, it will copy the position and the rotation and the scale of the camera axis to wherever it is. But in this case, it doesn't matter because it's at the origin. It's at 0, 0, 0. So I'm just going to put in a null node. I'm going to call it Dolly. And just add the camera. I'm going to explain in a little while why I'm doing this. Now, let's see what we can do. Let's just take the camera back. What I'm doing now is stupid. Sorry, take the dolly back like this, taking the top node, and I can put it, basically I can put it up and put it on an angle. Just use rotate, just put an angle like this, for instance. To actually layer animations, which is pretty neat and gives you a lot of control, I'm going to put it in another null node. Now, if I group it, by the way, I'll show you what happens. Let's get rid of this one. If I group it, it will actually put the pivot point right where I left the dolly one as well. But I don't want that. I actually want to have the whole thing on a little line. So I'm going to introduce another basic null node, call it orbit, and I'm going to nest that dolly part into the orbit again. Now, if you go to your project settings and you start animating, there's keyframe interpolation, one of the tabs in project settings. And keyframe interpolation tells you how the default keyframes are going to be interpolated. And that basically means how you knit keyframes together with an animation curve. Now, default this is set to spline, but I already set it to linear. Spline will give you a little smooth ease in, ease out, but it will also distort the movement a little bit. It's usually not what you want with a camera animation. So I'll just set it to linear. I can change it by hand later on. Now let's let's see what we're going to do. I'm going to click on orbit. Now, my preferred way to put in keyframes is just go straight into the coordinates and only animate the parameters that I really need. Using keyframe here gives me a lot of crap that I don't use and I have to get rid of later on. So try to keep things clean. Now we're at frame 0 on the timeline, and I'm just gonna add a keyframe here, and then I'm just gonna move my time slider and say, okay, you went around the bend 360 degrees, and you're, yeah, right, we're at frame 75. Great. Now we have just a very straightforward orbital animation, and of course the camera goes along with the dolly, and the dolly goes along with the orbit, and it doesn't speed up, it doesn't have an ease in, ease out, so you can loop this from frame 0 to frame 74, or from frame 1 to 75. Then you have each step once. If you add the 0 and you will loop that, you will actually get a little hiccup with every loop, because frame 0 and frame 75 are exactly the same, and they're the only ones that are exactly the same. All the other frames only come around once. It's like you're putting in 61 minutes into an hour. It's 60 minutes. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I got the orbit. Now I want to do some stuff with the dolly. Just go in there and let's see. Yeah, we'll just go to frame 0. Add a keyframe with the control key, and we're going to wind up, because we're making a loop, we're going to wind up with the same frame at the end, and let's say halfway, or more or less halfway, I'm going to move in to the top because it's so interesting. Alright, let's add a keyframe here. So now we get this. This will look a little bit artificial, and you get this bump in the middle. Why? Because we still have that linear curve. So now I'm going in Shift F3 to the timeline menu. Now you won't see anything here because I set the automatic mode. I switched that off. I hate it. I'm getting all that crap here. Everything that's animated, I'll just pull it in myself. So I'll just pull in the dolly from the object manager, just put in, drag and drop, and put it in the sidebar here. And I'm going to the F-curve menu, open up the position, and it only has one nice little neat animation curve. You don't see anything here. Okay, I'll just push the H. In the regular windows, it will center your scene, and here it will actually center in on the animation curve that you selected. Now you see how it goes. No speeding up, no slowing down, just going straight from A to B to C or to A. Basically, these values are the same. Now if I just drag a box around 3 keyframes and put it up to spline, you get this nice little curve. This is what default animation curves look like. You get the little tangent handles here that you can edit and put up like that and like this. By the way, this is a good way to hook up the start point and the end point. What I've just done is, if you select both of them, the tangent handles will basically move synchronized. So let's say this is good. This little bump will probably show up in your animation. And here we go. Got a nice smooth animation. Yeah. Okay. So now we have basically layered the orbit animation and the dolly animation. Now, for the final part, we'll just use our camera, And the camera is actually sitting on a little dolly, which is like a little cart with wheels, but it still has freedom of rotation or freedom of vibration, because I like it when it sort of bounces around or something like that. It's not really that smooth. So I'm just gonna right click on the camera and go to Cinema 4D tags and ask for the vibrate. Now the vibrate, you can do all sorts of neat stuff. Will enable the position, because it actually needs to bounce around. Now it bounces around up and down, so we need an amplitude on the Y. This is XYZ, by the way, and let's say 50. That's more than enough. Will it bounce around over the X? Yes, but just a little. That's sideways. So let's put that to 25. Will it bounce forward and backward? Well, preferably not. And let's say it has a frequency of 7, which is a higher frequency, so it won't be. It will be pretty bumpy. And here we go. It's actually disturbingly bumpy. This is no good. So we'll just backtrack this, and I'll put it back to 2. See what it does. Yeah, this is nice. It's kind of wobbly. Now you can turn this down, turn the amplitude down if you want to ease up on the effect. But this will make a really good camera move. Now, one more tip: if you put more parameters, animate more parameters in your camera, say the translate and the rotation. Do these things in a separate run. That means that not all the keyframes are in the exact same position, not on the exact same frame number, and edit the animation curves, edit them, look at them, see how they flow, and well, change it around a little bit and see what it does, because usually you get a pretty straightforward standard animation, and that's not what you want. You want to have some kind of realism to your camera move. Now, this is the way to do it.